I kind of left you guys in mid-sentence, I realized. If you're following along, I don't know that it was mid-sentence, but it definitely was mid-paragraph, by the way. I'm going to restart the sentence where I was. This is part two, by the way, part two. Um, and I'm just gonna jump right in. All right. Starting at my father could have made good money selling them, but if the officials found out, he would have been publicly executed for inciting a rebellion. Most of the peacekeepers turn a blind eye to the few of us who hunt because they're as hungry for fresh meat as anybody is. In fact, they're among our best customers. But the idea that someone might be arming a shame would never have been allowed. In the fall, a few brave souls sneak into the woods to harvest apples, but always in the sight of the meadow, always close enough to run back to the safety of District 12 if trouble arises. District 12, where you can starve to death in safety, I muttered. Then I glanced quickly over my shoulder. Even here, even in the middle of nowhere, you worry someone might overhear you. When I was younger, I scared my mother to death. The things I would blurt out about District 12, about the people who rule our country, Pan, the far-off city called the capital. Eventually, I understood that this would only lead us to more trouble, so I learned to hold my tongue, and no one could ever read my thoughts. Do my work quietly in school, make only polite small talk in the public market, discuss little more than trades in the hob, which is the black market where I make most of my money. Even at home, where I am less pleasant, I avoid discussing tricky topics, like the reaping or food shortages or the Hunger Games. Prim might begin to repeat my words, and then where will we be? In the wood waits the only person who I can be myself, Gale. I can feel the muscles of my face relaxing, my pace quickening as I climb the hills to our place, a rock overlooking a valley. A thicket of berry bushes protects it from unwanted eyes. The sight of him waiting there brings on a smile. Gale says I never smile except in the woods. Hey, Catnip, says Gale. My real name's Katniss, but when I first told him, I had to barely whisper it. So he thought I said catnip. Then, when this crazy lynx started following me around the wood looking for handouts, it became his official nickname for me. I finally had to kill the lynx because he scared off game. I almost regretted it because he wasn't bad company, but I got a decent price for his pelt. Look what I shot! Gale holds up a loaf of bread with the arrow stuck in it, and I laugh. It's real bakery bread, not the flat, dense loaves we make from our grain rations. I took it in my hands, pull out the arrow, and hold a puncture in the crust to my nose, inhaling the fragrance that makes my mouth flood with saliva. Fine bread like this is for special occasions. Mmm, still warm, I say. He must have been at the bakery at the crack of dawn to trade for it. What did it cost you? Just a squirrel. Think the old man was feeling sentimental this morning, says Gale. Even wished me luck. Well, we all feel a little closer today, don't we? I say, not even bothering to roll my eyes. Prim left us cheese. I pull it out. His expression brightens at the treat. Thank you, Prim. We'll have a real feast. Suddenly he falls into a capital accent as he mimics Effie Trinket, the manically upbeat woman who arrives once a year to read out our names in the reaping. I almost forgot Happy Hunger Games! He plucks a few berries from the bushes around us. And may the odds! He tosses a berry in the high arc towards me. I catch it in my mouth and break the delicate skin with my teeth. The sweet tartness explodes across my tongue. Be ever in your favor. I finish with the equal verve. We have to joke about it because the alternative is to be scared out of your wits. Besides, the capital accent is so effective, almost anything sounds funny in it. I watch Gale as he pulls out his knife and slices over the bread. He could be my brother. Straight black hair, olive skin. We even have the same gray eyes. But we're not related. At least, not closely. Most of the families who work in the mines resemble one another this way. That's why my mother and Prim, with their light hair and blue eyes, always look out of place. They are. My mother's parents were part of a small merchant class that caters to officials, peacekeepers, and the occasional shame customer. They ran an apothecary shop in the nicer part of District 12. Since almost no one can afford doctors, apothecaries are our healers. My father got to know my mother because, on his hunts, he would sometimes collect medicinal herbs and sell them to her shop to be brewed into remedies. She must have really loved him to leave her home for the shame. I try to remember that when all I can see is the woman who sat by, blank and unreachable, while her children turned to skin and bones. I try to forgive her for my father's sake, but, to be honest, I'm not the forgiving type. Gail spreads the bread over with soft goat cheese, carefully placing a basil leaf on each while I strip the bushes of their berries. We settle back in the nook in the rocks. From this place, we are invisible, but have a clear view of the valley, which is teeming with summer life, greens to gather, roots to dig, fish iridescent in the sunlight. The day is glorious, with blue sky and soft breeze. The food's wonderful, with cheese seeping into the warm bread and the berries bursting in our mouths. Everything would be perfect if this was really a holiday. If the day off was roaming the mountains with Gail, hunting for tonight's supper. But instead, we have to be standing in the square at 2 o'clock, waiting for the names to be called out.